for the button. Yeah, there it is. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Gold Mine. We have another fantastic show for you planned out today. I am super excited. We got Justin joining us today, and we got Shaun here as always. I am stoked for this one. This is going to be an absolute killer of an episode. We're going to be talking about timing. And speaking of timing, what you should be doing right now is liking the show, subscribing to the channel, hitting the notification bell, doing all that good stuff, getting your emails whenever we go live, which is, of course, Wednesdays for the Gold Mine, Fridays for the Collective. I am really excited for this one. Now, if you have any thoughts, questions, comments, anything at all, by all means, put them up in the comment section and we can engage those throughout the show. And other than that, let's get into a quick little intro and we'll dive right into the convo. Justin, you want to give us 10, 15 seconds? Who are you? Where you come from? All that good stuff. Then we'll jump into it. Hit it.
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Justin Shaun, former development group member. I live in Michigan now. I got out around 2017 and I own and operate a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu martial arts academy under Gustavo Machado. Got the coyote logo there so you guys can see. And then I also have a LLC for shooting, a tactical shooting school where we focus on close quarters combat, but geared more for home defense and, working in and out of your castle, whether it be your home or your car. So I'm back here in Michigan where I grew up and just loving the outdoors and freedom.
Love it. Love it. Shaun, how's the mountains out there?
Things are good. I had a chance to check out Justin's Instagram account this morning. And I mean, I don't know if you're all over social media or not, but that's the only spot I took a look at you. And you're into all the good things. So I'm sure that we're going to get along famously.
Oh, yes. This is going to be a good one. So we are going to be getting into timing today on, what's good timing, what's bad timing, how do we understand timing, all that good stuff. But before we get into that, I just want to hit these. Daniel Levante, afternoon, gents. Good to see you, Daniel. John Minari's here. Morning, team. Good to see you, buddy. It's going to be a good one. So I have a quick video, but before we get into this, in case anybody doesn't know what DevGru is, Justin, would you mind giving us a quick little rundown of what DevGru is? Because there are people out there that don't know what that is.
Yeah, absolutely. Dev Group it's an East Coast based SEAL team. It's our tier 1 component of the Navy side of things in the United States. And you have to have a certain amount of deployments, certain amount of experience, but you also can't be too experienced or too senior. So it's kind of funny that this podcast is timing is everything, because going through selection and training is all about timing. You have to be ready at the right time to get over to that organization. So they handle all the hostage rescue missions that come down the pipe from DC. So
outstanding. And if tell me if I'm wrong on this, but that used to be named SEAL Team 6, right? Or is it SEAL Team 6 and DevGru? Are they separate things?
It is. They're not supposed to be used in conjunction with each other. So right. Typically you'll hear people reference one or the other, but yeah, it's pretty common. It's common knowledge that they're the same thing. And typically, if you're from the command, people will say that, like, I'm from Damneck, or I'm a command member, or, and they just take for granted the fact that civilians and other folks don't really speak that lingo, a little conceited, I guess, or a little self-arrogance there. I don't know, but
yeah, I found that once I got out of the military, I kind of expected everybody else to know what I was talking about. And nobody knows unless you're in that group. Most people have no idea what you're talking about.
No one knew what you were talking about when you're in the Army, never mind when you got out. So
yeah, well, that's very true. There was a lot of people that didn't know what I was talking about. But so that I don't have to explain it, let's jump into the first concept, the first video I have here. And it comes off the fact that, Shaun, you say this a lot on the show, is that there is it's all about the right time with the right person, saying the right thing with the right person at the right time is hugely important. So I'm going to hit this up and then I'm going to get your guys' thoughts on it. Here we go.
Across a TikTok today that said, the wrong one will find you in peace and leave you in pieces, but the right one will find you in pieces and lead you to peace. I wasn't ready for that one today.
That's a quick one, and I just wanted to get your guys' initial thoughts on that. Justin, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm thinking he's, a broken guy that or at one point was broken, and somebody found him and kind of led him on the right path, you know, and he obviously felt that it was some sort of divine intervention, you know, people finding other people at the right time and able to put you back together and make you whole.
That's an interesting start on it. Shaun, you got any initial thoughts on that?
Just that guy probably, as Justin, and I'm reading it the same as Justin is reading it, perhaps. That guy probably had to screw things up a bunch of times. He probably had to get his timing wrong a boatload of times to understand that there's a thing called the right time to hear things, the right time to think things, the right time to do things. And so chances are he's probably not listened to a bunch of right timings. And that's why he finds himself in that moment having the bandwidth or the contextuality to be able to say, yeah, okay, now I understand the extremes of those two states.
It's interesting because when I first listened to it, the first thing that clicked into my head was the fact that he said the wrong person will find you in peace. And that assumes that that person is at peace to begin with, which I don't know if there are a lot of people out there in the world that are truly at peace or even know what peace is. So I'm wondering, did you guys figure that out later in life? Like how to be at peace? Or was it something that was uh, slowly, let me rephrase. Was it more of a aha moment, like, oh, I figured out what peace is, or was it a slowly developed kind of concept? Justin, I'm going to come to you again. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I think and maybe this is like the military side of me looking at it, but it's more compartmentalized, right? Like you're at peace with different aspects of your life or your career or whatever, you know, phase you're in. But I think that you can be at peace with, you know, certain decisions, but yet there's other unresolved things. It's more of this holistic approach and like, you know, putting the puzzle together, but it's a lifelong endeavor. So I don't know. I guess I'm saying, you said that you don't know if the person was really at peace, even though that person found them at peace. I think that's what I would agree with, is that, you know, that is a lifelong pursuit that requires continuous work, as we're talking about, correct timing, and you just become at peace with different things, right? And maybe you'll have to fix them again too, right? So
That's a great point. Shaun, thoughts on this?
So I think that there's an important distinction that the individual who's speaking didn't really make, and that is he maybe doesn't understand the distinction either, and that is he at peace or is he asleep? And so, you know, lots of people think they're at peace when really they're just not awake. And that's food for thought.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that. There's a lot of people out there sleepwalking through life, 100%. Now, the question I wanted to ask on this specifically is about this concept of the right person saying the right thing at the right time. Have you had an experience of that where it like kind of hit you like a sack of bricks? Oh my God, like that was exactly what I needed to hear. And how did that turn out for you? Justin?
immediately, an experience came to mind from the teams when I was active, and I had a master chief. He pulled me aside and he was just talking about team dynamics and different guys, and you know, you get all these alpha guys in the room together and they fight with one another and, you know, argue over who's bigger and stronger and faster and everything else, right? And he told me once, he said, you know, you're never going to appease 100% of the people, right? Like if everybody loves you, you're wrong. If everybody hates you, you're wrong. It's going to be a mixed bag, right? And for me, that was like at my point in my career, I really needed to hear that because I was trying to appease everybody, right? Like you want to make this guy proud. You don't want to let this guy know you're capable. You want to, you know, you're trying to be all these different people and you be a people pleaser. And at that point in my career, I needed to start to, you know, define myself a little bit more, right? Be like, no, not going to waver on this, not going to waver on that. But if I'd heard it earlier in my career, it wouldn't have made sense to me, right? Because I wouldn't have had all those interactions and experiences with different operators.
That is a fantastic point. Shaun, you got Thoughts on this one?
Yeah, just trying to think about how to get people to pull the trigger on the right timing, and or even understand that there is a right timing, or just the general concept of timing. And I think maybe if a person considers themselves as a stopwatch, when's the right time? You press your own personal stopwatch to get involved with the conversation, get involved with the event, get involved with your life, get involved with all those around you, the right timing of the moment. If you're a passive observer of life, you're not clicking your stopwatch button. You don't understand timing because you're actually not engaged in time. You're kind of removed from the moment. Time is slipping you by. You're not executing on the right timing because you're not executing. And so if life is a stopwatch, some people actually don't click the big button that makes the clicking noise. Whereas others, they clicked it a long time ago and they're watching the millisecond on everything. And so I guess the difference is, if I'm using the stopwatch as the analogy, some people don't see the minutes, some people track the seconds.
This is an interesting point, and to your thought, Justin, as well, is the fact that there were lots of times after the military that I had been given a piece of wisdom or a piece of information, or I've learned something afterwards, and I've gone, "Oh man, I wish somebody had told me that 10 years ago when I was still in." And under reflection, I realized that people were telling me that 10 years ago. I wasn't ready to hear it. So, how important is it to be open throughout those periods of time to be able to actually absorb those pieces of wisdom? Justin, I'm going to come right back to you.
Yeah, I think that we always get told, be a sponge, right? Like that's what you're told. Be a sponge. Just soak up knowledge, soak up information, learn from your leaders and people that have gone before you and done that. And that doesn't, like, you can be told to be a sponge, but you don't really know how to be a sponge yet. It's like learning to learn, right? Like you have to build a framework for learning before you can actually take on a new task and build something, a project of some kind. I think you have to learn through experience about being, a sponge and being open to ideas and receptiveness, right? Like being able, because yeah, you're right. I probably was told the same thing, right? Like you can't please everybody. We're told that since we're kids, right? And you don't hear it until you hear it. So I think it just takes time to figure out how to be open, and you learn through a lot of mistakes and a lot of failures.
Yeah, I was just going to say that it took me a lot of times of not hearing what people said before I actually heard what they said. Sean, you got any thoughts on this one?
I do. I don't disagree with anything that was just said. However, I do want to make sure that we're not sliding down the slippery slope of, but it ain't my fault, which is often the tact. And so I just wasn't ready to hear it. I just wasn't ready for the message. I don't know. I just wasn't ... That's on you, bro. And we all know that. But it's also on the person who's passing the message along as well. Like if I'm standing in front of you, Chance, 10, 20, 30 years ago, and you're being a jerk, you're freaking gonna know it. And if there's a way for you to do it better, you're knowing it like in the real time. No one that I ever worked with got to do, I just wasn't ready for it. That's bogus. And so the slack and idle party who is doing there's also a slack and idle party that is standing in front of them not delivering the message correctly so that it frickin' sinks in. And so there's always a way to make the message sink in. And the better you are at sending a message, the more message tools you have, the more bandwidth that you can move a person in the moment with. Well, the right person saying the right thing at the right time is the real moving action in that moment. And so if I've got to move your needle and I fail, that's because I just haven't found the right tools to move you. So I don't in that moment get to say, I guess I just didn't have the tools. It's two parties that have got to work together to frickin' move the needle. And so I won't look at you and think, oh, that's Chance's fault because he just ain't ready to hear it. A lot of it is my fault for not being able to put it across the right way. And so it's a 50-50 relationship. It's a shared effort that I think a lot of people shrug their shoulders and think, he'll be ready to hear it 10 years from now. Or, maybe I'll be ready to hear it 10 years from now. And I don't see it that way.
That's a great point. Justin, you got any thoughts on that?
No, I agree. I mean, communication is paramount, right, with anything. So I think both, Shaun's right that you have to be able to deliver the message, at the right time for the person you're trying to teach something to. You have to articulate it well. You have to, there's all these sensitivities that come with it, right? Like, oh, I got, somebody gets butt hurt and they don't absorb the message or whatever it is. And yeah, placing the blame on, one of the two parties is never the right thing. It's a shared accountability, So, and I also think there's it's scalable, right? Based on the importance of the thing trying to be delivered to, right? So, things that are less or more significant, maybe, people kind of brush it off and don't absorb it, and maybe that's okay. But if it's something, I'm a firm believer that if it's something that's very important and it is of a significance, you kind of need to get on board sooner than later, because we are limited on time. So I think the significance of the matter at hand also pushes that a little.
Yeah, that's an absolutely great point. Now I have another video here that I want to get into. It follows along the line of what we're talking about right now, but I just want to make sure everybody, you got any other thoughts on this, Shaun, before I jump in? Okay. So I'm just going to preset this one up because it talks about a tactic to get people kind of looking at their own future. But it really has to do a lot with timing in my mind. So I'm going to put this up and we'll get some thoughts on it right after. Here we go.
Whenever you bring on a new person, put them through this exercise. If they will not go through this exercise, do not waste a minute of your time with them, because they will never be successful if they won't follow your guidance. Here's the exercise. Take a clean sheet of paper and write down goals and today's date, and then write down 10 goals that you would like to accomplish in the next 12 months, and write them in the present tense. I earn, I achieve, I weigh, I drive such and such a car, I own. And then you take this list of 10 and you say, if I had a magic wand, and I could wave this magic wand, and I could have any one goal on my list within 24 hours, which one goal would have the greatest positive impact on my life? And usually this will jump out at you. Put a circle around that goal. And that's a goal you transfer to a clean sheet of paper, and then you follow the 7 steps. Write it down, set a deadline, make a list of everything you have to do to accomplish it, organize the list into a checklist, take action, and then do something every day. If you'll just do this, nothing can stop you but yourself.
Now, I want to get your guys' thoughts on this initially before I ask the question. So, what do you got probably on the top of your head after watching that one, Justin?
Well, yeah, I love that he's prioritizing things, right? I mean, that's what you're doing there. You have all these things, and he's boiling it down to what is going to make whatever the other 10 or 11 goals achievable, right? Obviously, there's one leading thing that, I don't know what that may be for somebody, but if it's they want to make this much money, maybe that means that they get a fitness coach too, or they get gym equipment, or they, that's all relative, because you could just move more, right, and become fitter. But there might be something that moves other needles as well. So I like that idea of boiling it down to the necessities, right? You go on a hunt, you don't take everything with you to make you successful, because there's weight limits on planes, and there's, you have limitations, right? So you boil it down to what you need if you're going on a big moose hunt. I think tackling goals in life is the same way, right? Achieve more with less.
I like that. Shaun, initial thoughts on this?
I do. And so I think what was just discussed is prioritization. He was taking a list and cherry picking out the one that he felt was most important to him on his quick list of what would I want in 24 hours. So first things first, I don't want anything in 24 hours, because in my life, anything that I can achieve in 24 hours isn't worthwhile. My life, things that are notable to me are things that take about a decade or so. And so prioritizing that list on a 24-hour, I can have it now, I wouldn't want it. Even if it was handed to me on a silver platter, I wouldn't take it. Because again, it's got no value unless there's a sting, unless there's an earn in it. So that's just my first thought. But my second thought is he's talking about prioritization, not timing. And so timing to me is something that we've been learning since the beginning of time. And so agriculture, when is the corn gonna start growing? When is the water gonna start flowing? When? All of the things that we've been learning about for tens of thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, timing. The timing of the snow, the timing of the moon, the timing of the sun, the timing of everything. And so as a species, we've been patternizing our world. We've been observing what's in front of our nose, perceiving what that means, turning it into a pattern, and then recognizing over several years that I don't know it is October, but there's a time coming up when the moon does this and the crows do that and the tree leans that way, that I've got to go out and pick my pumpkins. That was several thousand years ago, we'll call it. And so no one was walking around with watches or calendars per se. No one had their smartphone. A lot of it was long time observation shaped up into patterns. That's what timing is to me. And so if you're moving through the world without the second by second observation of forming patterns all around you, then you're never going to be really good at timing. Now you're guessing at timing rather than understanding observation of timing and forming patterns. So I'll try to round out my thought with this final piece, looking at Miyamoto Musashi as the example. So in his approach to sword fighting, he preferred to enter into that state of no mind, or into the state of void, as Sun Tzu would talk about. And so what are we talking about there is being comfortable enough in the void that when you step out of the void into, we'll call it the regular world that you better understand, timing is so much easier. If you're trying to create timing in the void, into the unknown, when you step back into the known, timing is just easier. So if you're shaping your understanding of timing and pattern recognition through a very simple and comfortable life versus shaping your understanding of timing in the void, in the unknown, in the harsh adversity of I'm not sure what happens next and I don't understand the pattern in front of my nose. If you can play in there for a while and then come back into the known world, timing is easier.
This is a fascinating piece, and the reason I brought that in, I mean, most of the whole conversation of that video doesn't engage timing, except for right at the beginning when he says, "Have people do this as you are bringing them onto a company or bring them into whatever, and if they won't do it, don't even bother with them." My question on that is that should that be a requirement, right? Does it need to be immediately upon engagement that we try to better people right off the bat, or try to get people to envision their future, especially from a leadership standpoint, things like that? I'm just wondering about the timing of that. It seems it seems like it's too fast to try to engage somebody in that right off the hop from trying to hire somebody. Be like, oh yeah, you want to work for me? Here, do this friggin' project first. It seems excessive. What are you guys' thoughts on that, Justin?
Yeah, I think they're probably trying to pull out a greater idea out of the person, right? Like a characteristic that they actually are goal oriented, and kind of like Shaun was saying, talking about timing and the periodization of everything, the seasonal stuff, like not getting fixated on a day, or, it has to be done by this amount, at the certain time, but more like, well, it occurs around this time. And it shows that somebody has the initiative to start something and finish it, that they're goal oriented, and they don't just settle for, well, if it happens, hopefully it happens. Yeah, I hope I'm going to achieve this. No, we need to know that these are your goals and you want to work towards these things. I think it just shows an employer that, hey, this person is goal oriented. They can organize their thoughts, and even the employer doesn't, or the interviewer doesn't have to focus on the details of that plan necessarily and be like, well, step 3 is wrong, step 5 is wrong. They really want to see start, finish. Can you get from A to B? And then the timing piece is a little bit broader, than we probably think it should be.
I like that. Shaun, any thoughts on that?
I don't disagree with any of that. And I think that the individual who was speaking, using his rapid assessment of whether this person is right for the company or not, it's a good system for a system that is limited. And so the individual who's doing the assessment or doing the interview has already determined what size of a square you are that fits in the square hole. And so if you're a round peg instead of a square peg, we don't want you, because we're all about efficiency and effectiveness, and we need you working hard and squared away on day one. And so we have a very limited aspect of what we're interested in, and you either are it or you aren't it. And if you are it, welcome to the company. And that's an efficient and effective way, but it isn't a very broad-minded way, and it's certainly not thinking out of the box way. And as I have come to learn over the time that I've been on the planet, the more out of the box a person can interoperate with other individuals, the broader the footprint, the faster the move, the bigger the solutions, the better the company. And so efficient and effective, like a laser beam, will get you down a straight path without understanding what's on the other sides of the path. And so you can be really narrow focused and fast moving, but you can't be all things to all people. And so if I walked into a company interview like that, and that individual kind of started off on me like that, I'd smile, nod, say thanks for the opportunity, and walk out, because that's not the kind of place that I would want to work.
When I was listening to it for the first time, it kind of threw me that would be that they would use that kind of timing right off the hop to try and figure out that this person was either good to go or not. And it seems kind of crazy in my mind, because you can teach people how to be within an organization once they're in an organization, but to assume that people are just going to be perfect for an organization right off the hop, like you said, it kind of creates a bit of an echo chamber in my mind. But that's where I'm coming to it from. And I find that the timing is just it's not pre-thought out. As to your point, Shaun, it's more about efficiency than it is about doing it at the right time with the right person, the right questions. Because I think, as you said, Justin, a little while ago, that it's an effective tool to make sure that people are goal-oriented, but it's just not done with the correct timing in my mind. I find that just the tack doesn't quite sit well. Any additional thoughts on this, Justin, at all, or anything on what Shaun just said?
No, I think it makes me think of the old, like, a mile wide and an inch deep analogy with that approach. So it could be a dangerous way to interview people, I suppose, if you're not careful and you don't know you yourself, what you're trying to draw out of the interviewee,
Yeah, absolutely. Shaun, you got any additional points on this? I got some more videos too, so I just want to make sure everybody's good. Okay. This next one is a bit longer. It's more about time in general than it is about timing specifically, but I just want to get your guys' thoughts on it afterwards, because I think it is really important in what we're talking about here. So here we go.
Me for a second. Literally, just 1 second. Here's what happened in that second. 4 people were born. and 2 passed away. Elon Musk made $700. Over 16 million liters of water evaporated from Earth. The sun produced more energy than the Earth's annual consumption. Earth traveled over 30 kilometers in space. 30 stars exploded into a supernova as they reached the end of their billions of years of existence. And sometimes you use way more than that 1 second, worrying about what others think of you. Kind of irrelevant, isn't it?
Bam. So let's get some initial thoughts on that. Justin, what are you thinking?
A lot is happening every second of every day. To me, it was just all about waste, time management and waste of your time. So I feel like the moral of that little clip was, don't waste a single second worrying about something that is irrelevant and won't change, the outcome of your day or your life in the grand scheme of things. So that's what I took from it, was don't waste a single second on something that's irrelevant to your goals.
Love it. Shaun, initial thoughts on that?
Yeah, if I adopt the position that time is a construct, it's an artificial construct created by man. We call it the second. And so as the seconds tick by, again, we constructed it. It's not like it was here always. So the artificial construct of time is simply a metric. And the metric is something that can be used or not used. And so, as Justin said, he was observing the 1 second that goes by as the opportunity for waste or not. And so that's how I see it as well. If you're not paying attention to the moment, then that's another wasted moment. And so using the 1 second metric as the example, that even if you're staring at your watch, watching the seconds go by, the seconds don't exist unless you understand what the second represents. And that is to be present in that second and understand the timing of the moment. And so timing is all around us in the real time. And that's whether you're sitting with a friend at a coffee shop, considering the right time to say the right thing to the right person in front of you across the table, or saying nothing. And so the right timing is not always action-oriented. Sometimes the right timing is saying nothing. Sometimes the right timing is saying nothing and just listening. Sometimes the right timing is simply giving a guy a nod, or giving him a wink, or giving him a knuckle, or freaking cracking him in the shoulder and saying, straighten your back, pal. And so timing is not always about knuckle push-ups or climbing up a rope or pulling someone out of a burning building. Timing is action that is only oriented to moving the needle for a person rather than firemen's carrying a person. So you've got to read the moment. You've got to read the room in order to execute against the real-time moment of now. And the everything aspect is to try to do your best in that moment for that person that you're interacting with.
I think there's a really great analogy here from jiu-jitsu in terms we everybody that does jiu-jitsu has heard this before, right? And somebody says, well, how do I get out of a rear naked choke? And you say, don't get into it. And I think this is kind of what we're applying, is the idea that once you understand how to manage your own timing or how to manage your own movement, you can start to preeminently I can't get the word out of my mouth right now, but you're able to see things ahead of time. You're able to say, oh, okay, well, I don't want to be here. So you can start working backwards from there. Well, I don't want this to happen. I don't want this to happen. I don't want this to happen. And I think that in terms of learning how to understand your own timing, think that's part of it. You have to kind of get into those bad situations. You have to let timing slip. You have to be able to see that mistake, recognize that you wasted that second. Okay, I'm not going to do that again. And then try to do it better the next time. You guys think that's a proper analogy, Justin? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do. I think you're talking a little bit about like living in the void again, right? Like Shaun was referring to earlier, being open. You can't be open and be a sponge if you're actioning things, and then you're using this unit of measure, the 1 second, and you're like, I have to be actioning something all the time, being decisive. This is what people want, employers want, my spouse wants, blah blah blah. My jiu-jitsu coach wants like, no, sometimes you need to hold somebody in your guard and let something precipitate, right? And then take advantage of the next second, not the second you're in, the next second when they misbehave and you capitalize on it, right? So
I like that. I like that. Shaun, any thoughts on this?
Well, if we're going to use jujitsu as the or the platform or the proxy for the conversation, then using someone who's a rank beginner or day one, or I will call them a noob, what they're responsible for is basically just breathing and being in the moment and not running out through the front door and saying, I'm never going to do that again. Like, just exist, because it's not in your control. The only thing that you have control of is breathing, try to stay chill, and your job is actually not even on your first day to be learning. It's just to like let everyone know that you are feeling okay. And so this takes time. The understanding of timing of everything takes time. So that first dayer, they don't understand what they're even involved in. And so 3, 4, 5 years later, you understand what you're involved in, but you still don't have good precognition, or you don't have good ability to read the future and start creating alternative options, we'll call it. And so once you get to that point, now you're kind of future casting to some degree. Now you can get involved with complex timing, where you have options that you can deploy in the real time based on precognitively seeing the future, or through pattern recognition determining potential outcomes in the future. And so I believe that that's what timing is a lot of, is you have to not understand timing to then eventually realize that there's this thing called timing. And then once you realize there's timing, then you have to play with timing to screw it up a bunch of times and form your pattern as to right, wrong, right, wrong, right, wrong. And eventually, years later, you start reading the room. You start injecting the correct thing at the correct time to the correct person. Then you start to see the magic unfold. Because until then, it's just a big grand experiment that you're botching, mostly. At least that's what I did. And so it takes a bunch of botching it until finally you'll start to get a glimmer that anyone can do it, but it just takes a freaking long time of trying, observing, perceiving, adjusting, and smashing for a decade or two.
I love that. Justin, any additional thoughts on that?
no, I like that approach. And I think that as you get better at time management, or however you perceive it, with jujitsu or shooting sports, you start applying pressure in those voids as well, right? You're like precognitively thinking about the next move you're going to do while applying pressure and being a cobra on this person. So you in turn, you're doing nothing, but you're doing something. The same way you're prepping a trigger and you've got a pound of pressure on the trigger before the shot breaks. You haven't decided to let the shot break yet, right? You're taking the slack out and you're applying pressure. So I think that's where people really start to master something, is they learn how to, in that void, apply pressure and other tools that help them, execute more clearly and more with more efficacy.
Yeah, this is going down a really fascinating realm, and I'm wondering basically what's the biggest lesson that you guys have learned over your time in terms of timing, what was the big thing that like clicked in your head all of a sudden that went, oh man, I need to either smarten up or do better or whatever it was. But was there a point in time where you just all of a sudden, man, I've been screwing this up until now? Was there a point like that? Shaun, I'm going to start with you first on this one. What do you think?
There wasn't a one time event where I magically learned the secrets to the universe, but there was a condensed period within my military career where I started to understand the consequences of poor choices in my actions and how I would suffer those consequences to a degree where it helped me change my ways. And so I think there was probably a couple of years there where I came to understand the importance of Julius Caesar. I wrote it down. I came, I saw, I conquered.
Vini Vidi
And
Vici.
so, that's right. And so that phrase, though I don't have it memorized, a long time ago when I happened to be in this phase of my life where I was going to make an adjustment, it came about through the idea of not violence of action, but speed of execution. And so, when you're screwing up, you can take as long as you want to correct the error of your ways, or you can change it instantaneously and then just get on with the freaking program. And so I was it's not like I was dragging my heels to change, to be better, to correct the error of my ways. I just wasn't learning it as efficiently and effectively. I wasn't moving as fast as I could away from an error and into a solution. And so for some reason, I thought that I had a time constraint. I thought I was supposed to take a certain amount of time to flip-flop in a 180-degree pattern and then execute in a completely different direction because that's the right choice to do. And I'm not talking about like a compass-bearing direction. I'm talking about a life direction, life choices, things that I wasn't doing well that I needed to do better. I didn't have to hang on to them as long. I just freaking threw them straight out the rearview mirror and never looked back and kept on smashing, but at a more expeditious manner. I didn't create a liminal space of hanging on to the mistake. I just freaking mistake in the rearview mirror, move forward, muy rapido. And so I think the timing is something that a person can drag out their understanding because they basically want to wallow sometimes in their mistake. They want to cling to the poor choice. They want to be dragged down by the bit of bad history. And so I eventually had to say, screw that, man. That's like total rearview mirror stuff. Punch forward as fast as possible. And so that's kind of what I have been doing ever since. Now, the other phrase that kind of stood out in my head, and I wrote that down as well, and that's from Sun Tzu. Opportunities multiply as they are seized. And so if you're doing your timing right, every time you choose a right timing, these things tend to multiply on themselves, at least if you're paying attention. And the moment that you can start stacking up some multiplication effects, it's kind of like a Harry Potter wand. There's a little bit of magic in it. And so, you've got to pursue some things that feel like you'll never achieve in order to understand that we all can achieve. And then you've just got to put the pattern together of this is how you excel in these moments.
I really like that. We had that conversation about entrepreneurship with the ladies at one point, and I think everyone was agreeing that you just have to kind of say yes to a lot of those opportunities, just like jump on them and then figure it out afterwards. I think it falls along almost in the same line. You kind of have to just seize the day, seize that moment, and friggin' give her. Justin, you got any thoughts on this?
Yeah, similar to Shaun, I don't remember like a moment in time or a day that it happened where I started thinking in that same regard of like, I'm just going to move forward. People ask me about buds all the time, right? Young guys that want to go into the Navy, and they say, well, what's the recipe to success? And it's small bites, right? Like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? You can't take it all at once. And I remember after the Twin Towers fell, I was a junior in high school. When I got out of high school, my uncle was an Army Ranger. I had a Marine recon guy that I was doing construction with in college, and we were good friends. And I had always wanted to be in the service. My grandfather was in the Korean War. I wanted to be a soldier. But I had something innately, like something inside me that was driving me to do more than, just serve. I wanted to do something bigger and serve at a greater capacity. So I wanted to become a SEAL. And I remember people just going, well, that's impossible, and they have these, Hollywood has, Rambo and Arnold Schwarzenegger and all, Hollywood has made these guys polarizing, gigantic, larger than life figures. And, I'm 5'7", 5'8" with my tall shoes on, and $160. And they're like, well, they basically said you'll never make it. I mean, even my recruiter was like, well, you probably won't make it. And I just said, you know what? I don't care how long it takes me. Like, I'm going to start training today for this. It's going to start today with a long run, a long swim. It doesn't matter that I grew up in freshwater swimming. I'm going to learn how to conquer the ocean. I'm going to do this, and I don't care what it takes. I don't care if I get rolled 10 times or I get dropped, or I'm going to do whatever it takes to become a SEAL. And then it really took that one experience, which was 2 years long, right, from start to finish, when I entered the Navy and got my trident. But it took that one phase of my life, and in achieving that, I just continue moving forward, not worrying about immediate gratification, today or tomorrow, and it'll end in success. And I remembered that when I went through S&T, my dad asked me if I thought I was going to make it through. And I said, yeah, I think I will. And he's like, well, how do you know? I'm like, I don't know. Just make it through everything. Like, I just keep grinding forward, and there are guys that obviously outperform me. You'll always have that. There'll always be somebody better in the room, always smarter, faster, stronger. But I knew that the grit and the drive and I'm not worried about how long this takes to accomplish it. I know that it will be accomplished. So yeah, I guess, there is definitely a time right after high school. And I think 9/11 was a catalyst for all of that. And it kind of, brought to life something. And then through that experience, I figured it out.
Yeah. I'm loving this. And it reminded me of a number of things that I've gone through my life, of where all of a sudden you get smacked upside the head with a concept or an idea. And one of them was the fact that, imagine what you could accomplish if time was not an issue. And when you stop and think about it, time really isn't the issue. It's our concept of time, or how quickly we want things to happen, or we have a preconception based on this should happen at such and such a time. It should only take so on and so forth. And it doesn't matter. Like, if you really want something, you can take, as Shaun always says, it takes a decade. It takes a decade. It takes two. Takes two. If it takes a year, it takes a year. It doesn't really matter how long it takes. It's just about consistently moving forward on that. And I have another question here. I want to preface it a little bit. We're all come from like leadership positions. We all come from either teaching or instructing in some way, or trying to engage the rest of the world, try to better themselves. How would you get someone else to understand their own timing? Where would you start somebody else to figure that out in terms of instruction or engagement or something like that? For an active tool that somebody could take from this episode and be like, oh, you know what? I'm going to apply this to my life right now. Shaun, I'm going to start with you again. What do you think?
Well, if your question is how to get someone to understand the importance of timing, where do we start understanding our own timing? Okay. So I think the very first step for me anyway, if it's a brand new person in front of me that I know nothing about, my first thought is to figure out how much they know about themselves in reality. So like, as they're slumped down on their couch watching Netflix, maybe in their head, They think that they are that Hollywood superhero. Because just like Justin, I'm half the size of a regular Hollywood superhero. I'm 5'9", 165, and so I'm an old skinny dude who doesn't look like much, and there's that. But there's a lot of people out there that in their heads they think that they are the Hollywood superhero, even though they're the same size as me. So you've got to figure out where their head's at and what they think they are. Because if they think they're a big deal, chances are the timing doesn't matter. So what I like to do is figure out what they believe about themselves and then ask them where they want to go in order to establish the delta between those two operating states. Because if they want to be a superhero and they think they are a superhero, then the timing doesn't matter. So that conversation doesn't occur until I establish the delta and then how to get them there.
I like that. Justin, thoughts on this?
Yeah, I like that too. Forming some identity. I think that if we just take it back to a jiu-jitsu approach and being a coach or a clinician in that kind of sense, it starts with assessment. I think that's what that one video was about, really, was an assessment, right? Finding out where their future employee is currently at. Like, is this person, you said, Chance, that, you don't know if you can immediately shotgun them with that and expect them to know, have the answers for you. But I think that's really what they're trying to get at there, is just, hey, tell us a little bit more about who you are, right? And where you're headed. And with a student, I get brand new students that come in, and sometimes they walk in with a blue belt. The three of us probably all have different ideas of what a blue belt represents, right? Based on your professors, my professor, right? The curriculums vary a little bit. But that doesn't even mean that the person that comes through the door, they might not be where any of us think that they should be. They might be in a totally another place. And you have to, as a coach, step back and take assessment and go, okay, you're here. And today it's time to start working on these things, right? And I think that's an important piece of it, is the assessment,
Yeah, I totally agree with that one. Shaun, I want to put this up here. This is your post from a little while ago. I'm going to see, I can't zoom in on that one, but on the bottom here, you have written down, to observe and perceive the right moment to act, you must understand the rhythm and natural flow of things, recognize patterns, be flexible and adaptable. Can you expand on that a little bit for us, just to dive into it a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the question. So, generally speaking, and I've spoken about this before, and it's not like these are novel ideas. These are like they've been around for centuries. And by the way, some of our podcast guests have spoken on this. We've spoken about this subject to some degree. I think that the moment requires harmony. It requires a certain sense of the rhythm of the moment, understanding the pattern of what is existing in the moment. Just like I believe kind of referred to it as an orchestra. If you're the conductor, you have to understand each instrument. You have to understand where they are on the stage. You have to understand how to harmonize the entire orchestra in order to make that disparate group of individuals a symphony. In order to make a great delivery of a work of art, if you're part of that art, you have to understand the rhythm of the moment, the natural pattern of the moment. And so we all get to do it jankily, all kinds of janky, or we get to do it slow is smooth, smooth is fast, just like a cucumber, baby. So for me, I think everyone should seek the harmony of the moment. And there's lots of disharmonious moments out there. And it's not our job to just throw the disharmony away. It's our job to understand why it's disharmonious and then figure out how to make it harmonious for us in each moment until we recognize our own pattern.
I like that. Justin, you got any thoughts on this at all? Oh, sorry, I got you muted. Hold on. There we go. Got you good.
Yeah, I love the idea of the harmony in it. I'm not musically inclined. My kids are, but I like that idea of being, it goes back to being prepared, right? Like being ready to learn, being ready to be open, this, harmony of just life in general and timing and where you're at and making things are syncing up and not being fixated on it happening at a set time. So I like the harmony look on it, the harmony view.
Yeah, Shaun, when you started talking about harmony, I was thinking something similar in that in order to find the right flow of anything, you kind of have to let go. You have to like feel the flow first. You can't force something to work until you know how it works. And a couple of days ago, or I think on Friday when we were talking with the boys, something clicked in my mind in the fact that you have to know the rules before you can break them, if that makes sense. And I think a lot of times what we talked about in terms of your life within JTF and the other special forces guys we've talked to, they all kind of say the same thing in that you got to know the rules and then you can put them aside afterwards. you got to know them inside and out, and then you can start creating your own things, which in my mind, that's what harmony is. When you can let go of what the rules are, you can then flow like the river of music or timing or whatever it is. What do you got, Shaun?
Quick thought. So yesterday I put up 2 videos. One of them was like a whoopah, a little bit of karate chop in midair. And then the other one was me standing on top of a log. The log was kind of high. The video didn't really demonstrate that. And so as I'm standing up on the log, I'm trying to do my Kung Fu Panda stuff. And here's the deal. In the verbiage that I put up, it was a direct quote from The Matrix. And it was from Morpheus. And it was, this is a sparring program. Load the sparring program. And so within the sparring program, within The Matrix, the rules of gravity, the rules of all things are unknown. But all of these rules, once you understand the totality of the rule set, once you understand the sparring program, once you understand freaking life, it's yours to play with, man. I've been playing with gravity and sticks and kicks and flips and all of the stuff for so long. I know the rule set. Now it's my job to play with the rule set and be a freak for myself. Enjoy the game of bending the rules, the game of there is no spoon, the game of you got to play with things in order to understand how you can play with things. And so that's exactly what I was doing yesterday. Was not worried about what the internet thinks about me standing up on a log on one leg doing my weirdness. I only care about that stuff. Maybe no one else cares about that stuff. But if anyone watches that and thinks that what I'm doing is about trying to demonstrate weird kicks, it ain't. I'm demonstrating to myself the rules that I get to bend on a daily basis. The rule of gravity, I adjust that in my mind. I understand how things fall. I understand how things throw. But I don't accept that I'm bound by those rules and I can only do it one way. I believe that there's many ways to skin a cat, as the old saying goes. And until you start playing with the rule set in front of your nose, you'll never understand how to play the full game.
100%. Justin, you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I love the playing part of it. We teach kids when I'm sure you guys see it too, kids in jujitsu or even, working out. Like a lot of times I remember Kelly Starrett, he did all the like mobility stuff for CrossFit, right? I'm sure you guys are familiar with him. But
yeah, supple leopard.
Yeah, supple leopard, exactly. He talks a lot about, he gets pool noodles out and him and his kids have pool noodle fights in the living room, right? And then they go hit their wad. Like you warm up through play, and we learn through play. When kids come in and they do their first jiu-jitsu class, like you don't worry about their form. You make sure that they don't get injured, right? And you limit them on what they do movement wise so they don't get hurt or something or end up hating it. But you really they roll around. they play the same way that we all did as little kids on the playground, you know, learning how to navigate the monkey bars, if kids still do that, or, you know, but yeah, I like that. I think that it can be scaled all the way up, and it ends up creating harmony, right? Like, while Shaun was talking, I was thinking about like machine gunners and how they play off of each other, right? Like, if fire superiority is the goal, like, right, that's the objective, every gun on the line doesn't empty everything they have, right? You play off of each other, right? The hinges play off of each other. It's pop, 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 right? And there's timing involved in that, right? You got to wait for that lull and trust, and, you know, believe that your buddy's done for a moment and you're going to put down cover fire. And that's how we create movement, and you sync up and you become harmonious through that, all that timing. But it's play, and it takes time. You know, you have to do it. You have to work as a team. You don't just throw people together. So it's so much. That's why those types of, you know, the units that we came from are special, because you have so many reps with those guys and so much time with them, and you've played so much. You just know the guy. You know the gait in his walk. You know what he sounds like on a gun. When you train with him and you're grappling, you know which way they move. You become, you know, you have predictability, and it turns into flow, and it's harmonious. So yeah, I really like that play aspect of it.
I love that. It made me think of you know, fire and movement. When you first begin doing fire and movement, and everyone's yelling, firing, moving, like all, and it becomes this cacophony of just kind of noise. But as you get good at it, as you start to work, like you said, in those teams, the talking becomes much less. You start to hear the calls, but it's more about listening to the fire, listening to the movement, listening to when you can hear the, you know, the stutter step right before people stop to drop to start covering, and you can start hearing all the minutia of it, which is fantastic. And you're right, that is the harmony of it all. Now we are a little bit over an hour here, and I do want to thank you, Justin. This has been a fantastic convo, Shaun. Really appreciate it. Timing is a big subject, so we like barely scratch the surface on this, and we'll probably have to do another show on timing for sure. But I just want to say thank you. Any final thoughts? Anything still bubbling in the back of your head, or anything overall on anything we've talked about so far, Justin? Anything at all?
No, I love it. I think about time a lot. You know, time is the most valuable resource I have. I think about it with my children. I think about it with personal accolades, things I want to achieve. It weighs on you heavily. So that's why it's important. It's why it's stressful. And I think sometimes it's why people get too fixated on it, because it is very important to us. So it's a great topic. I appreciate you guys bringing me on and letting me have a conversation with you about it. I learn every day. So learn something here too.
Outstanding. We really appreciate you being on here, and we'll get you on again. Don't you worry. Shaun, any thoughts? Final thoughts?
Yeah, just going to wrap it up, not building off of what Justin said, but it's still squirming around in my head, like the model that he laid out about how to flow, how to work as a team, all of these good things that I think certainly a lot of veterans forget over the time that they have left the military. And that is, at one point, they used to be good at the flow. They used to be good within a team. And perhaps now they've lost that team, or they've lost that sense of flow. It's like a bike, man. You never forget how to do that stuff. You just got to hop back onto the bike in the right team and start learning how to flow again. And we all know how good that flow feels. We all know what it feels like to be an integral part of a team that is moving well together, like a singular organism. It's seductive. It's not sexy. It's appealing. And once you have done it enough, you don't want anything else. So if you feel like you've got something missing in your life, if you feel like there's a hole, a gap somewhere in the way that you're living your life, find a good team. As a noob, just jump onto a good team. And they'll bring you up. They'll give you little bits and bobs for you to do where you are part of the team. You're an integral part of the team. But over time, you'll learn the flow, and eventually you'll just be part of it. And being part of something that moves well together is extremely satisfying. So go find a good team.
Mm. And I would say BJJ is a great place to start. You get to be a part of a team, you get to engage in something new, and you get to physically get back in that flow. That's one of the things I tell absolutely everybody I can. Go do some jujitsu. It'll improve every aspect of your life across the board, in my humble opinion. But I might be slightly biased just because I love it so much. I don't really have much to add on to the end of this. I really thank you guys again. It's just been absolutely great. So I will finish up as I always do with continue to learn, continue to build, continue to grow. See y'all next week. Chimo.